All right, we are live. Welcome back to another New Year's Indie Book Blitz panel. I am back with dark mystery and horror authors tonight. I'm super excited for this panel, and I see we already have people on. Hi, Wade. So glad to have you tuning in. If you're watching on Twitter or you're watching on YouTube and you would like to leave questions or comments for any of the authors, feel free to do so in the chat. We are trying to get a couple of the other authors in. Technology. I told them before we went live, you never know when you sign up to be an author that they're going to expect technical stuff from you. But welcome, everybody. We have Ryan on, we have AC on, we have Stuart on, we have Steve on. How are you guys doing?
Not too bad.
I'm good, thanks.
Everything's fine.
Awesome. So I know, Steve, you've been on the channel before. I think we got a lot of new faces to the channel and to the Blitz, and I'm so excited to meet you. We're going to just start off. Ryan, would you like to start us off with just telling us a little bit about who you are, what kind of books you write, and maybe a book or a series you're known for?
I think that's for you, Ryan.
Oh, for me, sorry.
Sorry.
Sure.
Ryan is going above and beyond to be here today. It's like 3 in
Yeah.
the morning for Ryan over in Germany. So thank you.
No, you're welcome. I'm Ryan Foltz. I'm from Germany, as you already said, and I'm writing high concept mystery thrillers, which are one is published outside, around here. It's called Ice and Prey. I published it in 2022, and it's located in Iceland, in Greenland. Sorry, not Iceland, in Greenland, around the capital of Nuuk, and it's a mixture of high concept techno thriller and cryptid horror. So it's I was very interested to write it, and at the moment I'm quite deep into my writing in progress. It's called Aching Deep, and I hope it will be published in March. I wanted it to be published in autumn 2023, but it took me a little bit longer to write it.
Yeah, it happens. But that's one of the blessings of being indie. I think you don't have to worry about publishers going, you're not going to get published if you don't make it in. You can be like, I love you guys, but it's going to take just an extra 2 months, but it'll be worth it, I promise. Yeah, it's so good to meet you. And AC, welcome. This is my first time meeting you too.
Yeah, it's nice. It's nice being here. It's nice seeing everyone putting faces to names for the first time. A lot of us. So my name's AC Cross. Technically a doctor, but you don't want me operating on you. But I write a lot of different kinds of books. It's kind of the best way to put that. I've written some like spy comedies in the past. I've written a weird Western, which is one that most people probably know me by, which is called Where Blood Runs Gold. And then I just published The Boddicker Letters, which is an epistolary story that is just straight up Lovecraftian. So I've kind of bounced all around. I also have a novella-ish short story called Zoo, which is about mental health, and it was very much cathartic one. So I basically have a lot of different things that I work on, none of which really makes sense. But I am working currently on the sequel to Where Blood Runs Gold, and also a different story dealing with cursed objects. So clearly I have a theme.
I love that you have so many different aspects, because that's going to really come in handy. We talked a lot about, delineating between different genres in the Blitz this year, because we've got readers and we've got fellow writers on. So we're going to come back to sort of what makes mystery dark mystery. Where does it start to delve into horror and all that good stuff after our introductions? Just as a heads up for people who already talked and want to think about it. But Steve, it's so good to have you back on the channel. You came and you read some of your book earlier this year, and participated in all the Spiffbo, the self-published fantasy blog off Blitz stuff, and
Yep.
yeah. So for those who haven't seen those, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Okay, so yeah, so I'm Steve, and I'm from Canada. I was originally born in England, and we moved to Canada when I was very young. Grew up in Newfoundland, and now I live in Montreal. And I'm a fantasy and horror writer. I entered Spiffbo 9 with my political epic fantasy, The Wings of Ashtaroth. And so, in some ways, I guess maybe that's the one I'm most known for, but my books came out in such quick succession. I don't think I'm really known for anything yet, except maybe just like, saying dumb shit on Twitter. But that's probably the most likely, to be honest. But my other book, which I probably is more relevant to this panel, although arguably not, according to some people who've read Ashtaroth, is The Erstwhile Tyler Kyle, my queer horror comedy, which released on Friday the 13th in October, this past October. So that's, and that one's been more successful overall, I would say, generally. It's also one that is a lot shorter, so a lot of people feel, I think, a bit more comfortable picking it up. But yeah, and I'm a reviewer also now for Before We Go blog, which is something new versus what was going on in the summer. So,
How did I miss that? Congratulations!
Thank you. It's super fun. And I did want to say, like, I beta read AC's The Boddicker Letters, and it's awesome. So, yeah, definitely pick it up.
See, and that's coming from reviewer Steve now.
Yes, exactly.
Yes, always great to see a Spiffbo entrant become a judge.
Yeah, I'm not judging any of the Spiffbo 9 books, just as a note, because like I was a participant. It would be incredibly unethical. So when I read poor Katie's book, Hills of Heather and Bone, which is amazing, by the way, it's really good. I didn't post that one on the blog because she's actually a finalist, so like they're gonna come out with their own reviews. But you can check out my review on Goodreads. It's a really good book, 5-star read, absolutely. So
yeah. But if anybody's watching and you're like, oh, Spiffbo sounds interesting, or Katie sounds interesting, Katie was on the previous panel tonight at 5:30 Central, and that's in the playlist on the channel, as well as a couple of other self-published fantasy blog off authors who participated this year. Katie says, judging for next year. I'm not sure if you're doing that next year, Steve. I don't know if Steve knows whether he's doing that next year. So, Stuart, it's so good to meet you for the first time.
Likewise. So I'm still pretty new to the indie scene. I'm currently doing a series of horror novellas called Eight Nightmares. So we got from Only My Eyes Move to Where Dreams Are Lost to Black Masquerade. I'm also very slowly working on compiling another collection of short horror stories called under the title Crimson Dolphin. So yeah, still starting out, but it's so exciting. I've also got written some fantasy and sci-fi as well, which are in competitions at the moment.
Wow. Congratulations. And you've got
Thank you.
that broad genre range too, like AC was talking about.
Yeah. Always trying to cover a decent range of genres, so that you're not stuck doing one thing forever.
Yeah.
Exactly. Let your brain run.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah. One question I did have for you guys writing the different genres, especially when it's different from like mystery and sci-fi. Do you feel like that's something you can easily do under the same pen name? Did you have to do 2 separate pen names to do that?
For me, I haven't. The comedy ones actually were under Aaron C. Cross, but I'm considering what to do about that. But that's down the road. but my thought on it is I'm not pinning myself down to any genre, so the same name can work for me. Like if I'm gonna write smut, I might do something different just to completely remove myself from that equation. But other than that, I say, what's the harm?
Yeah. Oh, we have the nerd book review on. Hey, nerd book review. Love the reviews on the channel. So, what about you, Stuart?
I I would honestly find it very difficult to keep up with what names I would go for each particular genre. So I figured I'd just take the Stephen King, Clive Barker approach and just have anything from fantasy to horror under one label. I would agree with AC if the Divide decided to write smut, and I would most certainly write under a pen name. But other than that, I don't know. I want I like my potential readers to know that they can expect anything from the horrific to the wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think like I kept my name the same. And my books are very, very different. There's certain thematics they have in common, but like, and there are sort of like I hinted to earlier, there I've had people read Ashtaroth and say like, it's got some quite horror inflected passages and that kind of thing, which I think is accurate. But I'm always like a bit nervous when someone likes one book and then they message you and they're like, I'm gonna read your other book, and I always have to be like, I'm sorry, just in case, like, you might not like it quite as much, or, and then I almost like end up warning them off of reading it, which is probably not what you're supposed to do as like a marketing thing, but yeah, probably warn too much.
Yeah.
It's
That's a really good
interesting
point,
to,
though.
interesting to listen to you three because yeah, I've written some sci-fi stuff when I was younger and teenager, and I write it on my real name, so Ryan and Foth, just in case, just a pen name. I gave myself, which is in fact a kind of anagram of my real German name, because I decided to publish the first time in English, and yeah, since my German name is a little bit difficult to spell and to understand for English speakers, I decided to give myself a pen name that sounds a bit more English, in fact, and has something to do with the way I'm writing, and yeah, with my real name as a kind of an anagram, and so Rhino Falls was the result of it.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I do agree with the romance being very different than just the other general genres. Like to Steve's point, I was not going to split my work into two pen names because I was like, oh, I worked so hard to hit the USA Today bestseller list with the dark fantasy romance book, and then I realized that most of my books, the romance is just a side plot, and that's not good enough for the readers who bought that. And so when I put out Lord's Gambit, and like the first book has pretty much no romance whatsoever, and I saw the reviews go from like really good reviews to 3 and 4s, which are still good, but not like my previous works that had the romance, I was like, oh, I might need to split my romance into a romance pen name and then keep my epic under my main pen name, since that's mostly what I write. So if you're watching this and you're a writer, you've heard it here. Some different tips on whether or not to get a new pen name. But maybe if you have smut, new pen name for your other stuff.
I love
we had a cozy mystery panel last weekend. And oh, Steve, there was a lag. Were you going to say something there?
I'm sorry, I was just gonna say I love the anagram name thing, like idea that Ryan had. It's such a cool idea. Yeah. But
yes. Yeah.
I think it's better to I wanted to the pulse is sometimes a bit confusing, but the ways that I'm not doing the plotter way when I write, I do more the panthering way to write stories. So I have, of course, a lot of plot holes in it, and I'm going to fix them. That's there's holes for, and luckily it depends very good with my real German name. So that was the idea that came along when I started to think about a pen name for my English writings.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really creative. I like that a lot.
Thank you.
So last week we kicked off the Blitz on Friday, and we had a cozy mystery panel, and it was very intriguing because I have never had mystery panelists before this year's Blitz. And all the Blitzes I've done, they've been fantasy, they've been sci-fi, and this year we're branching out bigger. And so the cozy mystery authors were kind enough to educate me on what makes a mystery cozy. And I'm curious to hear what you guys feel shifts a mystery away from being either general or cozy and into dark, and where those horror elements come to play in your own works. Stuart, you want to kick us off, and then whoever wants to take it from there is welcome to.
So for, at least from going by the name, I would presume that cozy mysteries are very relaxed and chilled. Like they don't have the same stakes and vibes as, say, Silence of the Lambs or Seven. And I think that's what would separate cozy mysteries about. I haven't read cozy mystery, so I'm kind of going off the genre name. They would have they would be like small town people trying to figure out, like, why did this guy disappear? But they were but then when we can move on to something darker like Silence of the Lambs, we would see, well, higher stakes, more gruesome discoveries, more Ed Gein in the mystery. And yeah, I think that's what separates the two. It stakes and the general vibes.
Yeah. So how does that darkness sort of come into play for your books?
I just liked exploring dark subject matter. I do blame Robert Louis Stevenson's The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, and From Software's Bloodborne for piquing my interest in the horror genre, which then would lead me into writing about it later. But I just find the prospect of exploring the darkness so we don't get lost in it as a productive means of using horror.
I think a big part of the difference is honestly like vibes, because thinking about it, I haven't read a lot of cozy mysteries. My mom and my sister read them, especially my sister. But like, for instance, I watch the show Midsummer Murders with my parents. Have any of you guys seen that one?
Yeah.
So like, I'd classify that as cozy mystery, but when you think about the crimes that take place, like, they are murders.
They are gruesome.
Yeah, but it's like, especially in the earlier seasons, like Joyce, the detective's wife, will join some kind of club, and whatever club she joins, like, there's a thematic set of murders around, like, acting or sewing or bird watching. And like, the as you say, like, the murders themselves can be quite gruesome, but it's the overall vibes of the show that sort of nudge it into that cozy sphere, versus then something like that you might think of as being like a neutral base level mystery, and then sort of like another level, we'll say left from that, because left is the devil's side. Left from that is maybe something that's edging a bit more towards sort of, I guess, what we're calling dark mystery, and then into horror category or thriller category, if there's a mystery element included in either of those. Yeah, and I think it's a lot of it is probably tone and atmosphere and what feelings it's evoking or trying to evoke in the reader or the viewer, is a lot of it for me.
Yeah, and I know, like, when you came on and you read your excerpt, Steve, during the summer, it was that desperation and the grief and the anger, and it's all boiled together. And it's not like the happy feels, but you still want to know more. But it's like, here's all the darkest aspects of a human soul pretty much wrapped into one big scene.
Why, thank you.
That's so relatable.
Exactly. And I'm really curious, AC, about you, because you have that comedic background. Was it
Yeah.
hard for you to like shift over into like the dark stuff, or was it easy because you had the comedy on the side?
Well, depression and anxiety help too. Um, but there, part of what kind of distinguishes, I think, the horror and the dark mystery is, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's almost a sense of cruelty in that it is, you can have the cozy mysteries or the regular mysteries, and there are murders, and they might be gruesome, but they're not mean spirited. There's, it's for love or for money or for something tangible. The killer or whoever tends to want something. Where oftentimes in horror, and that can be, as simple as like, Freddy versus Jason horror or cosmic horror, is there's a sense of there's no the villain doesn't want anything except chaos, except to cause pain, except to have that cruel component to it. So with that, it's kind of, I think that there's definitely a, like, again, like people have said, that kind of tone helps, but it's also even more than that. It's almost like what the motivation is for characters and things and people involved. And it's kind of similar with comedy in that, motivation changes, um, the style of comedy and the form of comedy. You can have very black comedy, you can have, wacky comedy, slapstick comedy, witty comedy, and so for all these different things, it's the tone and the motivation really kind of change, the feel and kind of almost the genre of whatever the story is.
Yeah, yeah,
Absolutely. I think a lot of my readers said, okay, the atmosphere was so dark and so cruel in some kind, and I think, yeah, that is what makes a huge difference to the cozy aspect and cozy mystery, because when you think about Miss Marple or something, which is typical classic cozy mystery. Um, it's a nice old lady who is walking around in a little town, as you said, Stuart, and yeah, okay, someone is dead, but that's I think that's happened somehow. And
Mhm.
yeah, and dark mystery or dark horror kind of stuff, I think there is more detail to the gruesomeness and the way the people are dying or how they are killed and somehow. And usually you always have some kinds of vibes that you think, okay, it could collapse or escalate in every second from one to another. From a normal situation into something very gruesome and thrilling, or and the other aspect, as you said already, AC, is yeah, the personality of your characters. So I always try to develop some characters or some protagonists at least that have some failures and some lacks or something that makes them weak in some facts. For example, my protagonist in Ice and Prey has to handle with travel sickness, and so she has to fly a lot in between Greenland, because there are no roads between the places in Greenland. You have to fly from every place to another because the country is so big, and there are less than 60,000 inhabitants in the whole country. You have to fly everywhere, and she's going to get sick every time she's in a plane, and she has some very hard background. I try to put into the book that every times from the very beginning is in the back. You can feel it through her behavior and through her thinking, and I try to recreate this in my new book too. So I think that is what is make it uncozy in some way. It feels uncomfortable, and that's what makes it dark sometimes. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Katie asks, "What drew you all to writing horror?" And I'm going to shift this also over to like that dark aspects too in general. What horror films, shows, etc., inspired your works? AC, you want to start us on this one?
Yeah, I mean, Lovecraft for sure.
Thanks.
It kind of goes without saying, especially since my newest book is straight up Lovecraft. But I've always been drawn to things like House of Leaves as well, by Mark C. Danielewski. Um, there's the sense of the unknowable in that if you know your enemy, if the characters know their enemy, there's a potential that they could fight back, find a way around it. But sometimes you just can't. It's just there, and you're trying to simply understand what the characters are up against. And that also lets you kind of play around with description. It lets you play around with how, not even necessarily gruesome, but grotesque, or it lets you play around with ideas that may not fit super well in more traditional settings.
Is it Lovecraft across the board? Everybody's like, okay, that's it. Aaron grabbed it.
I wasn't sure who was going next. So
Yeah, neither was I.
So I guess I can go. I was on a horror. I think I've told this story like 3 times now on different interviews. So, but like ever since I was a kid, I was kind of like drawn to those sort of like dark aesthetics that you find in horror and that kind of thing. And one of the earliest examples of that I can think of is this My Little Pony movie I had, the original like 80s cartoon, not the sort of newer one with the bronies were into and stuff. The like earlier one. And sound like a hipster now. I liked My Little Pony before it was cool and then uncool again. It was called Escape from Midnight Castle, I think, and it was about the specific pony Firefly. And there was this evil like demon lord who transformed all the ponies into like these like dragons that were like really spooky when I was a kid. And I was just obsessed with that. And like the Hexa scenes from like Fern Gully, where he's like the skeleton that's dripping sludge and all of that stuff. So I was really into scary stories to tell in the dark. All of those kind of kid stories, early horror stories. And it was a lot of that kind of like kid stuff kind of got me into it. And then as a teenager, I was able to watch horror movies for the first time. I read Dracula, which was really formative. A lot of gothic horror, like the classics in my teens. And yes, exactly. But
I'm in much approval of it.
My Little Pony horror enough itself.
Yeah, you can find horror in the weirdest places. For my horror comedy that I wrote, yes, Texas, Tim Curry. Like I would say, Twin Peaks was a huge influence on kind of that's where a lot of the horror vibes are coming from. But also just like I've I hate kind of to use this terminology, but like consumed a lot of horror media, especially video games, television, and movies, even more than books, to be honest. And so like a lot of things were almost subconscious that I was reacting to and putting into the book. It's such a good choice. It's such a self-referential genre too, horror. Like it's one of the most, I would argue, self-referential genres. So you kind of can't help but sort of like, stand on the shoulders of giants, who are also in turn, standing on the shoulders of giants, and it's giants all the way down or whatever. So it's very much kind of that sort of thing. But I think, like a lot of what I was doing was reacting to things also that I didn't like in some contemporary horror films that I saw coming out. And I was like, I can see what they're going for, but they fucked it up and I'm going to do it better. Or like, I don't like where this is going right now. I'm going to do something different. That's tends to be often where I kind of like try to enter into a conversation in terms of what's happening with the genre. Yeah. It was kind of a long, rambly answer, but anyway.
Yeah, Dracula is one thing you said already, Stephen. That Dracula and Frankenstein, the two classics, I think, in English literature about how I really do love them, and that influenced me a lot, I think, and also of course Stephen King in some way, and I also like things like when you go over to horror movies or something that's an emotion picture. I think the X-Files series is something when you have all of the dark things we talked about. You have something mysterious in the background. You have some kind of dark vibes. Everything can escalate or collapse, and every second to the next. And you have some protagonists with much weaknesses and failures. When you look at David Duchovny's David Fox Muller, he's playing. He's always mad about the loss of his sister, and so that throughout the whole series. And I love this vibes a lot. And what also did a lot huge influence to my own writing is the original Jurassic Park by Michael Crichton, because it really mixes all this up. It's so gruesome in the details how the dinosaurs are killing. So it's definitely not the cozy way as the motion picture is. The book is much more X-rated in some way, I think, and I really love that. But it's also more scientific, and I really love this mix up between why did nothing work as it should by the scientific stuff throughout the book, and also the gruesome killings in there. I love the way that Dennis Nedry is dying in the original book. Yeah.
Yep, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yes, so it's much better than in the film. I loved the film when I was, when I was 12. I watched it, I think, 120 times or something. It was the best film I ever made. Okay, I must say that Crichton had worked on the film too, but the book is 100 times better than the movie, of course. So it's really good. And I also like books of, I don't know, I know the guy is called Stuart Orton. It's a British author that does some high concept mystery stuff, like the death of the seven death of Evelyn Hardcastle. I think in the United States it's called the 7.5 death of Evelyn Hardcastle. So there are so brutal details in it about the violence in it, but at the same time it just okay, you can put something together that makes no sense, as he said, and I really love that stuff. Or that's thing that influenced me a lot. And Stephen King, of course, is something that influenced me in some way. So that is why I decided to do the dark mystery horrors thing that I do now.
Yeah. Loving all these examples, from My Little Pony to Crichton. We got the bases covered.
Yeah, I have already said that my my dive into horror started with Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde and Bloodborne, but that was the beginning. I would soon read and watch Dracula, Silence of the Lambs, Seven, Silent Hill as well been a big influence on me. It's two through 1 through 4 are just masterclasses of horror, and there would also be stuff like Psycho and Berserk, Uzumaki, Junji Ito. I have been delving more into Japanese horror lately. I want to find more about that. I always find horror particularly fascinating because of how in most examples it's always about exploring the darkness of society and even humanity. Lovecraft as well. I need to mention Lovecraft because the Carlotta Space is a masterclass of horror. Would recommend it to anyone. So it's same like Call of Cthulhu or The Shadow of the Innsmouth. So many influences that I can never even begin to list all of them.
That was a great question, Katie. Thank you for sharing, and thank you, everybody.
Yeah, thanks, Katie.
Yeah, so going into 2024, we're here. We've already finished a week. We survived a week. Congratulations.
Yeah.
What is coming up with you guys for writing and publishing and events and things like that for the new year?
Who wants to start?
I can start. So the fourth story in Eight Nightmares, our broken world, is nearing publication. I've got the art for it. It's really beautiful, and I'm also going to be sending off the seventh draft to the editor again to just run through one more time because I've been learning the importance of taking it multiple times to the editor because I'm still at this point. I've had to update the manuscripts so many times because I keep seeing errors in it that we miss. but and I'm also trying to get Crimson Dolphin ready. I've got the mock-up art for that, and just need to work through the three works in progress that are going to be included in that. So yeah, that's it. But I'm also hoping to get onto the fifth story in Eight Nightmares, A Farewell to Humanity. So those are like the basic plans for it.
That's a big launch going right there.
Yeah,
Eight edits. Whew. I'm excited.
Yeah, so am I.
Yeah. Ryan, what about you? What's coming up in 2024?
Yes, as I said before, hopefully going to publish my actual work in progress again deep in I hope in March or April. So at least I want to have the ARC out in March, and I'm going to try to promote it a little bit, like things like this indie blitz, or I will having two more booktube interviews in February and March, and I plan to do some live readings with English book clubs here in Germany. So that's why what I'm going to do. There will be some. Maybe I will start a translation of the book into German somehow, so that there is so I can do some more live readings here at the local bookstores, because not every local bookstore. I'm living in a quite rural region in Germany, and especially in more rural regions, there are not so much audience for English writings. In bigger cities like Berlin or Hamburg or Munich, you have more audience for this. And yeah, last year I did a reading in the Netherlands, and maybe I could do this one more. It was really fun to do so to an English book reading club in England in the Netherlands, and I really like to do a new episode of it with a new book.
Awesome.
It's exciting, and I just want to say, because I don't think we've said this, how amazing it is that you're writing, in one language, you're translating into another language, and doing everything you're doing in two languages, marketing in German, marketing in English. Like, it's, even as a bilingual author myself, I can't imagine trying to do my work in both of my languages. Like, it's hard enough to do all the stuff in one language. So
It's a lot of fun, I must say. The German literature space, or the literature world in Germany, is so much narrowed compared to the English one, because you have people from, you can see here, people from Canada, from the US, from the UK, and from other countries too, because English is a widely spoken language and understood language. So you have a broader audience in this, and German is still so small compared to just speak it as a native language in Germany and in Austria and part of Switzerland, and that's all. And that's also compared to the middle of Europe. So I love to have some interaction of different cultures within my books, in the research. You can see I've been. Wait. and to Greenland. And of course, I have Danish scientists, and German scientists, and Greenlandic scientists, and all this mixed up in this book, and all the research I did. I had to speak a lot with people from other cultures, from other continents, and I do the same with my book now. I have my actual work in progress is about parasites, and so I have a parasite expert from South Africa I'm talking to. I have a medical examiner who's doing the medical examining stuff in my book from Ljubljana and Slovenia, and talking to all of them in English. So it's just natural to write in English this way, and it's a kind of experiment for myself to express yourself and another than your own native language. And I really love to do that because I really love to read English literature myself.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you for all you do.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, AC, how about you? What have you got going into 2024?
Oh man,
Or what don't you have going into 2024?
Yeah, pretty much. So if you follow me on Twitter, which you certainly can, I just post memes. That's basically all I do. But I have a massive work in progress archive. I'm at like 55 stories. They're probably all not going to get done, but there's a few that I'm working on right now. I'm working on getting the physical copy of Bodker Letters out, hopefully sometime this month. Hopefully get a physical copy of Zoo as well, and then working on Where Blood Runs Deeper. That's the sequel to Where Blood Runs Cold. And then the kind of other one I'm working on is A Gouge in the Heart of Forever, and it's it deals with like cursed objects, but it's also kind of a seafaring story, but also kind of like aristocratic politics, also grief. It's weird even for me. So we'll see if I get that one out this year. But right now it's just trying to promote Bodker Letters without becoming obnoxious about it.
Yeah.
Which is that is a fine line to walk, man.
Oh yeah.
So
I feel you. Yes.
doing what I can on that.
Well, good luck. 55. Whatever you get out, even if it's just one, that's huge. In
Exactly.
A year. Don't put so much pressure on yourself. Yeah, it's going to be awesome, no matter what you put out. Steve.
Yeah.
You got book reviewing. I know Katie hinted at, are you going to be judging next year? But look, you got book reviewing now. You've got all the reading you were doing already. You've got writing. What's coming up?
Yeah, so that was the big dilemma. Was like I really wanted to enter Spiffbox, partly just because it has such a good name. That's Spiffbo 10, so the self-published fantasy blog off 10, and so everyone calls it Spiffbox, or that's generally anyway. But I just really like the name, and I wanted to enter it, but I didn't really have anything. But I did have this other fantasy novel that I'd written, I think back in 2015 or 2016, Ash, Oak, and Thorn, which was originally just titled Lesbian Vikings. So in my heart, that's what it's called. That's what all the file names are. It's just Lesbian Vikings. And it's also very horror inflected. It's more sort of, I'd say, moody and gothic and atmospheric versus full on. It's not particularly a gore fest. Although, whenever I say that about anything, my mom will say something are you lying? The last time you said that, it had people's heads getting cut off. People's heads getting cut off is always what my mom brings up. So there's some eye horror related gore, which I realize is in every single one of my books now. That I'm saying that.
Well, Mom, that's not the half of it.
Yeah, it's a fantasy novel set in the same world as Ashtaroth, but it's quite tonally different, I would say, and it's set on a different continent. The prose is very different because I kind of wrote it to sort of be it's influenced both by my growing up in Newfoundland and kind of Newfoundland accents. Yes, Biff Box. Yes. And but also sort of like my father's family from the north of England, and just sort of like this mishmash of all of these different, things that were particular, I guess, to me, and I sort of infused the language with that, along with like I'd done Old Norse during one of my medieval studies programs, so like it was kind of all tangled up. And yeah, so like I'm hoping to get that out. I have it out with some beta readers now. The only reason I was reluctant before is because it takes place in the future of the same world as Astaroth. So like there are, even though it's on a different continent, there are some sort of like slight spoilers. So for anyone who's reading that series, which isn't finished, that's a warning. But my friend kind of convinced me that it was worth putting out anyway, because she actually read it first and then read Astaroth, and was like fine. She didn't remember that like the various things had been spoiled, so it was okay. The other things I'm working on are the sequel to Astaroth, which I'm serializing, so it'll be like a few years before that's like a full-on print book. So if you want to get the story now, you should read it while it's being serialized, because it will take a long time. And the final thing I'm working on is I'm hoping to have the sequel to my horror novel, The Ursula Tyler Kyle, which is called For One Night Only, out in November 2024, because it's set at Christmas. So like I wanted to take advantage of the Christmas marketing opportunity. So like that's why that's happening. Yeah, that's it. And reviewing. I'm going to be doing lots of reviewing, and also hopefully finishing my thesis. But yeah.
You're like, thesis. That's like the last of my worries
I
here.
So yeah.
Yeah, and I just want to remind everybody watching that if you're like, oh, I got to pick up their stuff, everybody's links are in the description box if you're watching on YouTube. So you can grab books, follow the authors. That way you don't miss Steve's sale, the one-day sale in November, or anything else coming out from the group.
Yeah. When they need to follow when pre-orders for Our Broken World go live. So that happens, yeah.
Yes. Well, thank you all so much for coming and joining the New Year's Blitz, helping us kick off 2024 with bookish things. This has been a lot of fun.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. This was awesome.
Yeah, thank you. This was super fun.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for having me here. Being together with all of you was so much fun talking to you.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you for joining us at 3:30 in the morning.
Thanks for this opportunity as well.
Absolutely.
Yes, my pleasure. If you're watching and you're like, wait, don't go away, I want more authors, there's a whole playlist on my channel. The New Year's Indie Book Blitz has over 100 authors participating this year. So you can go to the playlist. We've had over 15 panels already, and we have more. We have, I think, 3 or 4 tomorrow, and then a couple more on Monday. So you can subscribe to catch them all as well. Thank you all so much, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.